All right, let's talk about a feeling that's way more common than you might think. It's that sense of being replaceable. And this isn't just some fleeting thought. For a lot of people, it's this deep, complex psychological pattern that quietly shapes their entire world. So yeah, let's get into it. So let me just ask you straight up. Have you ever felt dispensable? You know that nagging feeling, that feeling that your place in a group or at your job or even in a friendship, it's just not that secure? It's a really personal feeling, and it's right at the heart of what we're going to break down today. Yeah, this question, it cuts right to the chase, doesn't it? It hits on that core fear that if you just disappeared, nothing would really change, that everything would just keep moving along without you. And that feeling, that's the emotional anchor for this whole pattern we're about to unpack. Okay, so let's dig into the psychology behind this whole replaceable feeling. The most important thing to get right off the bat is that this isn't some random emotion that just pops up. No, it's actually a learned pattern. Think of it like a mental script your brain has written over time, all based on things you've gone through. And like a lot of these deep-seated beliefs we have, this pattern, it usually starts pretty early on. The roots often go way back to experiences where our value felt conditional, where we kind of learned, maybe without even realizing it, that our spot in our family or with our friends wasn't a guarantee. And this is a really, really important distinction to make. Feeling replaceable is a learned belief. It is not a fact about who you are or what you're worth. It's just a story that your mind has gotten really good at telling itself. And the good news is, if it's a story, it can be rewritten. And just understanding that, that's the first huge step. So, okay, you've got this core belief. How does it actually show up in your life? Well, it starts to branch out into these very specific mindsets that literally shape your thoughts day in and day out. These are the internal consequences of feeling replaceable. The first big one is this constant expectation of being replaced. It's almost like you're living with this low-level hum of anxiety in the background, always telling you that your spot, wherever you are, is just temporary. It's this assumption that every connection you make comes with an expiration date you just can't see yet. And this mindset, it's not just a feeling, right? It actually drives what you do. You might find yourself constantly scanning for any little sign of rejection, a text that takes too long to come back, a slight change in someone's tone. To you, that's proof you're being pushed out. And honestly, when people do choose to stay, it can feel like this huge surprise, not just the normal thing. All right, the second mindset, it's a big one. It's the comparison trap. And we're not talking about just casually looking at what others are doing. This is like a relentless, nonstop internal audit where you're measuring your worth, your skills, everything against other people. And you always come to the same conclusion: you fall short. It's absolutely exhausting, and it's a totally self-defeating cycle. And this right here, this just lays out that internal logic perfectly. You see your own flaws in like 4K high definition, right? But when you look at other people, you see their highlight reel. They seem so capable, so much more interesting. And with that kind of distorted view, being replaced doesn't just feel possible. It feels inevitable. Okay, so we've talked about what's going on inside your head, the mindsets. Now let's shift gears and look at how all that internal stuff translates into external actions you can actually see. This is how that feeling of being replaceable affects how you show up in the world. One of the main behaviors is hiding your needs. And the logic behind it is actually pretty simple. If you're a burden, you're easier to replace. So what do? You push down your own wants, your own feelings, your own struggles. You try to be as low maintenance as humanly possible, all because you're trying to secure your spot. Does any of this ring a bell? Saying, oh, it's fine when you're totally overwhelmed, or never asking for help because you don't want to be an inconvenience. At the very core of all that is this belief that having needs somehow makes you less valuable, less worthy of being kept around. And then there's the flip side of hiding your needs, which is overgiving. Now, this isn't just about being a generous person. It's actually a survival strategy. The goal is to make yourself so incredibly useful, so helpful, basically indispensable, so that no one would ever even think of replacing you. You're trying to earn your spot through sheer force of effort. Okay, so we've looked at the root of the feeling, the mindsets it creates, and the actions that come from it. Now let's put it all together. Let's connect the dots and see how this whole thing becomes a cycle that just keeps feeding itself. So here's the key takeaway. This chain of events. It all starts with that root belief, the one planted way back when. Then that belief grows into these internal mindsets, expecting rejection and always comparing yourself. And finally, those thoughts and feelings, they drive your actions, either hiding your needs or overgiving to stay. See how it works? It's a complete self-reinforcing loop. And all this brings us to one last, really important question. This whole struggle we've been talking about, it's all built on one idea, that you have to be irreplaceable to be valued. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? What if your value isn't something you have to constantly earn? What if it's just there, simply because you're you? Definitely something to think about.